This is a song from my dad. He was a big influence on me, both my mom and dad. My mom was very physical, artistic, visual, graceful. My dad was a great storyteller and musical. He sang and loved to tell family stories. He was also a good Republican. He was really proud of that, and for a long time I was too, a good Republican. But he wasn't a spiteful man or a spiteful politician. When my brother and I, there was a fellow that moved to none of my friends ever used any racial epithets, none. And I never heard any adult around my parents' friends either. This is Bristol, Tennessee, which is right in the northeast tip of Tennessee, Bristol, Tennessee, Bristol, Virginia. They used to have the Governor's Day Parade, and the governors of Tennessee and Virginia would get into the same convertible and go down the street, which was divided by the state line, and the Tennessee governor would be sitting in the left-hand side, and he'd be in Tennessee. And the Virginia governor would be sitting in the right-hand side, and he'd be in Virginia. And I was so young, I thought this was some kind of miracle. I was just so taken with this. And after the parade was over, I'd go down and I'd split the line. I'd 1 foot in Tennessee, 1 foot in Virginia, and I thought that was the most exciting thing that would ever happen to me in my whole life. And sadly, I was right. But if you look back at your life, the things that happened to you at 7 and 8 years old were probably the most exciting things. Anyway, it was just a southern town like that, and it was the 60s, and things were starting to change. And so suddenly somebody moved, kind of a bully fella, and he liked to tell what he thought were funny racial jokes and sexual jokes, and he'd laugh a lot when he'd tell these jokes. We had to walk from the bus all the way back to where we lived, and it was about a half a mile. So we'd hear joke after joke after joke. And my brother and I went to my dad and asked him about this thing because we'd been hearing these racial ways. And my dad said, "A gentleman doesn't use that word." And I just thought nothing of it. He just said that. A gentleman doesn't use that word. That next summer, I went to summer camp, and it was the first time they'd had a black child at the camp. There was one black child. And most kids were fine with it, but there was a couple of bullies that would always be talking about how dare they bring this black kid in. And they talked about burning the torch or something. They were plotting to do this and that. And we'd go out on a hike, and they'd talk about it. No one would talk back to them. No one would say that's wrong to say that word. And I've always been regretful. There's that French word where you think of the perfect thing to say after the event has already happened. It's something about going down a stairwell. The word comes to you or the phrase comes to you. I should have said that. Well, I wanted to say that, but I didn't say anything. But I should have. I should have said to that boy, a gentleman doesn't use that word. Might have gotten beat up, but what a thing. But I think it's the reason that I wrote this song. The Klan came to march in my hometown in the 1980s. And I saw it in the newspaper in New York City. I went, wow, I can't believe that. But I called up some friends, and they told me all about it. And I started thinking about the way things changed. And I finished this song, 1986, because I was going to play the Kennedy Center. My dad, the good Republican, was going to come to it, but he said, can't you find some nice Republican place to play? Like Ford Theater or something like that, But so I finished the song just in time to do this song. It's called Number One in America. In 1963, in my hometown, Bristol, Tennessee, sitting on my mother's knee, watching Amos and Andy on TV. Amos Santa Claus on Christmas Eve, a little girl was tugging at his sleeve, singing, I have a doll, my own color, please. He said, honey, you can make believe. Just then came a call on the telephone. It was the mayor, asked if my daddy was home. This was for his ears alone. Mom and me listened on the second phone. They said, the Freedom Riders are on their way, and they'll be here by Christmas Day. Our laws they vow to disobey. 'Cause our schools as wide as the Milky Way. Well, now we're really in a fix. Can't let them show us up like country hicks. Once we let the races mix, it's goodbye Jim Crow politics. First it's 40 acres and a mule, then they want to swim in our swimming pool. Pretty soon they'll be wanting to go to school. Well, we were taught the golden rule. Imagine them telling us how to live. Imagine them telling us how to live. We're number one in America, number one in America. Beat the drum for Uncle Sam, overcoming Birmingham. Axe handles versus the right to vote. All white jury, that's all she wrote. Back of the bus, don't rock the boat. Separate but equal by the throat. That was 20-odd years ago. Where's the change in the status quo? The freedom land is lying low. It's shackled down on a rotten road. Yeah, the Ku Klux Klan is still around with a permit to march in my hometown. But only on Virginia's ground, the Tennessee side turned them down. Sheriff stood there with his deputies, ostensibly to keep the peace, but he made us this guarantee. By God, they'll not march into Tennessee. All the network cameras were triple-tiered. We laughed and cried, we hooted and jeered. Mostly we stood there unfeared till the Ku Klux Klan disappeared. In some far-off distant dawn, when a black is president and not a pawn, will they burn crosses on the White House lawn and talk of all those days bygone. Imagine them telling us how to live. Imagine them telling us how to live. We're number one in America, number one in America. Beat the drum for Uncle Sam, overcoming Birmingham. Dynamite in the Baptist church, 4 teenage girls lost in the lurch. Fire hoses in the billy clubs, police dogs and the racist thugs. Night riders and the lynching mob. Lawmen say they're only doing their job to stay number one in America. Last Christmas Eve at the Kmart store, a white family there, they was dirt poor. Father said, kids, pick one toy, no more, even though we can ill afford. I watched his son choose a basketball. The oldest girl a creosote shawl. The littlest girl chose a black-skinned doll, and she held it to her chest and all. I watched to see how they'd react, since they were white and the doll was black. But the mom and dad were matter of fact. They just checked to see if the doll was cracked. So may you make a rebel stand, where black and white go hand in hand, until they reach the freedom land, where the lion lies down with the lamb. Oh, number one in America, number one in America. Beat the drum for Uncle Sam, overcoming Birmingham. Dynamite in a Baptist church, 4 teenage girls are lost in the lurch. Fire hoses and the billy clubs, police dogs and the racist thugs. Turn back the clock to Little Rock, bought and sold on the auction block. Night riders in the lynching mob, lawmen say they're only doing their job to stay #1 in America. We shall overcome someday.